What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the apocryphal acolyte of the apocalypse here, and we are back with episode 114 of the video game therapy series. I've noticed I've gotten shittier at doing these for some random reason. Now, I'm not saying that I'm permanently worse. Certainly, I have some knack to say something for a certain amount of time, but I notice I feel like sometimes the substance of these has faltered, but I guess it doesn't really matter if I don't talk about anything because it's not really the point. But sometimes it does feel, I guess, less not that profound is ever the word to use, but it certainly feels less relevant. Some of the things that I ruminated on, but maybe I'll find the streak again sooner or later. I also don't want to be. I kind of hope and want not that I want to be upset or upset's probably the wrong word. Just fired up during some of these, but I think some of these topics do require that I get a little bit more amped, which I think results in not only more interesting and entertaining, I guess, talking for anyone listening, but also just I think gets truer at the whatever my true feelings are behind something. I think if I am too even keel, I often I don't get my full frustrations out. So it's not really, not inviting me to be screaming about things, but maybe a little bit. And maybe this first topic can actually, can start the fire a little bit. I just want a PSA, and this is totally in my little bubble, and no one's supposed to listen to this anyway. Um, to anyone driving a car in 2025, the year of our Linux, turn your fucking brights off. I mean, the amount of time, like I've spent a fair amount of time on the road as of late, for reasons that don't pertain to you. But I mean, some people just drive around with their brights on all the time. They don't ever. There's no amount of like, oh, is there no one around, or is it an unsafe place? No, they just drive around with their brights on as if they're regular headlights. And part of this responsibility falls on the manufacturers of the cars that make headlights that are just too bright. And everyone's, oh, there's like you can't see or anything. But you realize when, especially if you're in like some lifted truck and you have military grade LED lights, shining millions of lumens onto the street. I can't see anything. So now you're blinding anybody in a car that is under 8 feet tall. And sure, maybe you can see the road and you can run over anybody that you're seeing on the road, but I can't see a fucking thing if your stupid brights are on. Or, I mean, I don't even like, again, some people if that's their brights because you can kind of tell when you look up at a sign if someone behind you has their brights on because the sign is like weirdly illuminated in the sense that it's like illuminated more than it's used to be, or you don't used to see the sign in that bright. And some people just drive around just with their brights on all the time, like as if it's not there's no problem. But what you're doing, you're just blinding everyone else on the road. It just drives me nuts. My car's not that high off the ground, so if even like taller cars as regular lights still kind of blind me. My lights are old, and of course, I don't see that well out of them. But the amount of people and the amount of brights on the road needs to stop. It's excessive, and that's kind of it's a very first world problem. Not most people don't even have cars, I suppose, but people over here do, and they don't know how to turn off the brights. So that's my first little PSA. So turn your fucking brights off. I don't know how many times I have to. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to start doing on the road to get these people to turn their brights off. Like I can flash them, not flash on my ass, but flash, my brights at them to tell them, hey, shut the fuck up and turn your brights off for God's sakes. I can't see anything. But I don't know what else to do. Yeah, and I'm not really a road rage guy, but don't push me, I guess. Anyway, that's my first little PSA. Second, this is also a frustration, and maybe this will be the whole episode. I saw a bus drive by, and like there was an advertisement on the bus, and it was like, and again, I'm butchering the exact words here, so I'm taking this a little bit out of context, not giving the advertiser the benefit of the doubt. But the ad was something like, talk to your child today about sexual identity or something like that. Or it just had something to do with like talking to your child and then regarding like it was like sexual orientation or like, make it normal for your child to like talk about it, which I understand what you're getting at. What you're getting at is essentially it's okay to be gay, you know, or if like you have some other identity thing that you need to talk about. It should be okay to talk about with your parents. But I kind of have a problem with that on the side of a public bus for one thing, which is just kind of a weird place to be advertising things about sexual identity. And second, this is a broader societal beef. Why is everything just about sex all the time? And I don't know if I just maybe I don't have the benefit of living in a different part of history, but it feels like we're strangely obsessed with everything having to do with sex. Who you're having sex with, what kind of sex you're. I mean, I don't even like the tools and the orientations and like the people and there's too much about sex. Sex is too prevalent in society. We need to just dial it back. And I realize that there's this whole like reproductive importance thing, but besides that, it's not even about that really. It's not like people are talking about sex as like a vehicle to have children because that again is the biological purpose of sex. But now it's like it's this weird like it's almost like the ubiquity of sports, where it's like you're training your body to, to the end. Sex is just like another outlet. I suppose it's like, some, expression of speech or some kind, which I understand that there is like expressive possibilities within the act of sex, but it's just there's just too much going on. I'm sick of everything having to do with like who you're fucking or if you're okay with other people having sex or if there's some you have some hang up with it or there's some other problem that you have to like let everybody know and walk around with a sign on your head that says that you're gay and only fuck black people. I don't know what it is and I don't really care. I'm kind of done being overboarded with stuff about sex. I'm sick of it. So can we just stop? Not everything has to do with sex. Not everything in the world has to do with who is sucking what, where. It doesn't really matter. So I'm done with it. That's one big it's one big thing. And the other thing about like homophobia in general, which again we'll kind of run counter to this, but all this is just my opinion. If you deeply care or are offended by homosexuality, or if you care at all about homosexuality, you're probably gay. And I mean that in the homosexual sense. So if you're just like, because it's always the ones who, and this isn't really a unique take by any means, but it's always the ones who are like the most homophobic or like these super strict Catholic people that, are the ones that actually run around hate gay people. Most people, and nobody should care, who's like if people are gay. Why do you care, right? I mean, there's a difference between like something gay or just sex being shoved in your face, which is what I'm upset with. I'm frustrated that sex, period, gay sex or straight sex, it's not because it reminds me of that Key and Peele sketch where it's like that gay guy working in the office and it's like, oh, he's not mad, he's not homophobic, he's just sick of stuff being shoved in his face. And that's kind of what I think. If you really care about people being gay or you're homophobic or you have some problem, and it's like, then you're probably gay. Otherwise, like, just leave me out of it. I don't care who has like what your thing is, but don't. I feel like it's just too advertised now, and not the people themselves. I mean, like the fact that I'm seeing an ad for sexual identity of children on a bus, which just feels like way too many variables going on. Because it's like one thing to have a public ad, period, that has to do with sex. It's like an erectile dysfunction or something like that. And sure, maybe I'll like that's fine, but like, why is the children now? Now children are now part of this whole sex conversation, which is good on one sense for like health or something, but on the other hand, it just feels like people are trying to educate people about sexual identity at like 11. Like you don't even know identity, period. And it's my other problem, I suppose. Um, it seems like our culture now is very, very fixated on this idea of identity, who you are, what your past is, or what your people are, or who just your sense of identity, whatever that means to you. And that could be again a sexual identity thing, but I feel like that should not be that big of a part of it. Or maybe that can be part of it, but like your whole personality shouldn't be that you're gay or something. That should just be like, oh, and you're gay or whatever, or you have some other fetish. I don't care. But I feel like identity now is so prevalent. Like everything is about identity, which feels like kind of a stupid thing to be fixated on because I feel like philosophers of all kinds throughout all ages have been very befuddled and struck with like an idea of who I am or what I am. It's like, so who you are, is that like what you do every day, right? That could be one kind of thing. People ascribe their careers to their identities. It's prevalent now to like just ascribe your sexual identity to who you are, which again is not something that I would do, but people can do that, I suppose. But I just think the whole idea of like obsessing over and being fixated on what your identity is. Like, who am I? Like, I need to know, I need to get to the bottom of this to figure out who I am as a person, or as a sexual being, or as whatever, as a career being, as a piece of our economy, which I realize that there's some parts of that are very good. You know, the self exploration part. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any self exploration, but like the fixation with this outward identity that you're putting forth. I feel like self exploration and figuring out who you are should be a entirely solitary activity, right? I think all these videos serve for me as like, okay, who might I be? And it's not like I'm concerned, or I'm like concerned, or I'm anxious about who I am, or if I'm somebody that, am I being somebody that I'm not, or like it's just really me. I don't. I think it's not. It's not really. It's not to say it's not that serious, but the idea that needs to be this like constant outward battle, like everyone knows I'm trying to figure out who I am or something like that. It should be a more introspective journey, and not one that is the obsession of your life to figure out, well, is this me? Some things you just have to, you have no choice. You have to do it. It's like, I don't think people that work at a Jersey Mike's or at a Wendy's are, sitting there like, well, I thought about it long and hard and I discovered that I am a sub maker. I'm a sandwich artist at Jersey Mike's. It's no, they're like, well, fuck, I don't really have the space financially or personally to concern myself with whatever I am. I need to make money. So I'm going to go work at Jersey Mike's. So, I mean, especially with like careers, everyone has to like pick something that fits themselves or their identity perfectly. Or like they have to wrestle to get to the bottom of themselves. Like, who am I? I don't know who I am yet. But that shouldn't preclude you from doing anything, right? It's like, do I consider myself uh, I don't know, obscure Minecraft YouTube vlogger or whatever you want to call this? Not really. I mean, I guess you could say that's what I am. That's what I'm doing. But I'm not spending any time more than the time making these videos, like concerned with that being a part of my identity or who I am, or is this true to me? I don't really know because to be frank, I'm a completely different person probably every few months. Not to say like totally different, but different enough to where it's like, oh, you've picked up weird new opinions and habits and things, which I think is part of the human experience. It's part of the process. It's not like this, like there's a moment like this eureka moment where all of a sudden, no, I figured it out. This is what I need to do with the rest of my life. It's like, I don't think it's ever that like cut and obvious. It's, there's more subtlety to it. And there's a lot of exploration that happens by just doing things and not, you know, I guess forever questioning them. And that's part of what this is. I'm just doing something in the hopes that it pushes me in some direction and not necessarily is one that leads me going in circles, but figuring what my ideology is, or do I believe this or do I believe that? Like, but beliefs are just blow with the wind. I mean, my God, it's not really, especially with like this idea of truthhood. I'm almost I'm like sickened by this point of like facts. This is my facts. What's a fact? Like, this is a fact, and it's like, I understand that there's like, again, this everyone has this concept of what something being factual is, like being true or factual, whatever. But I think the level of scrutiny and just that like word itself is like completely void of any meaning at this point, right? Like what a fact is or what a fact isn't. And it's like, especially like with science, and I've gotten mad about this before about like how like, oh, well, science said something. It's like, first of all, science is not a god or an omnipotent being, or it doesn't state anything. Science simply is a tool that we use to collect evidence in support or against some notion, right? Which, again, these are all wishy washy words. So using fact as anything that comes out of science is kind of hilarious and ironic because that's just not really what science is. It doesn't really produce facts. It has can produce support for hypotheses or theorems, but these are all still should be at least highly debated in a lot of sense. So it's really like these new things that come out that are like, oh, this is a fact. And it's like, no, there's evidence to support this, but like facts, like we're ignoring the facts. I don't know. People just love just throwing the word fact around, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't argue with them. You said it was a fact. It's like, well, what the fuck? That doesn't. You can't just say things are facts. Like this is a fact. And it's like, according to whom? And can I investigate this any further? I don't know. People, I hate what has become of the concept of things being factual or true. I don't know. It drives me nuts. I guess speaking of identity, I was thinking about, this actually has nothing to do with identity. This is just kind of next. This is below my haiku on identity on my topics list here. But I was thinking about like the creation of art and where art comes from, and not to shit on any modern artists, but there's a lot of, I think a lot of what is being produced creatively now is sucks. Now, again, I'm kind of speaking out of my ass on that because like, oh, I'm sure there's some people somewhere doing great things, but like ultimately, like what is promoted and what is talked about in mainstream society or culture as art, not that I'm a part of that, but just what I hear from proxy, is not anything that is creatively like impressive, I'll say. And I think part of what that is just there's not, yeah, sure, there's like death of like these grassroots artists or whatever you want to call it. But I think the very origin of art comes from some deep dissatisfaction about some kind of subject. And sometimes that is an idea, sometimes that's an object, sometimes that's, I don't know, something else. And it now feels like art now feels too many, like it's trying to accomplish too many things at once. Whereas like this art needs to be economic in nature because it has to make money. It has to be social in nature in the sense that there's social commentary on it. It has to be political in nature, that there's these undertones of things. And artists often I mean, I guess you could say it's almost an overabundance of being dissatisfied that they create kind of these hodgepodges of what art is. But I think a lot of the historically great art has come from very focused uh, efforts towards very specific, I'll say, areas of dissatisfaction that isn't really as prevalent now. So again, I don't like even think about this with a lot of older movies. Like the point of older movies, like because movies themselves, yeah, like it's entertaining. You watch them and it's fun or something. But I think a lot of them are supposed to have some kind of like meta commentary. Like, what is this movie saying? So like things like The Matrix are an obvious example. Like, what is that saying? Well, that's talking about our it's kind of taking a peek into our future. So it's like thinking about, okay, well, it's trying to get us to think, what does the future look like? If robots or whatever go, same with like the Terminator things. And those are pretty obvious. But even other movies about, I suppose, less futuristic subjects, even like kind of tacky subjects about, people being flawed or whatever. Um, I kind of forgot where I was going with that actually. Uh, well, sorry, the meta commentary on movies. I feel like a lot of the movies now, for one, they're all just remakes of other shit. It's like the Marvel, Batman Part 60 or something. How many more fucking Batmans does anybody need? Who even watches that anyway? So there's not really anything new creatively coming out. But in addition, I think even what does come out, I've seen like one or two newish movies, and they've just been horrible because like it almost seems like because I'm very focused on what the meta commentary is. I don't often care or get fixated on like oh my god, it's Captain Jack Sparrow, or like I don't care about the individual actors or whatever, or that whatever happens in the movie itself. It's like, what is the movie saying? And often it's just so empty of any intellectual merit that it's just like this whole premise is on shit. Like you're just building. There's not even like a good idea here. Like the nucleus of the idea sucks. And it's not saying it's easy to come up with new ideas, but I think I don't know. The great art, in my opinion, has to be it needs to be a labor of love of some kind. It can't ever be like this like cash grab, and it can't. I don't think it can accomplish everything at once. At least it takes I don't know a generational artist with this perfect magnum opus of work that it can do even a couple things at once. So I think artists now are trying almost to do too much, right? Where they're like too focused on like, well, it has to be financially successful. So I can't, push the Overton window too much. Otherwise it's not going to sell. It's like, all right, well, first of all, if you're focused on like selling your artwork or your artwork being a financial vector for you, you're kind of screwed already, right? You're at that point, you're just making things for the fat cats as an investment vehicle. You're not even really pursuing art for art's sake, which again, I would argue defeats the entire purpose of doing art in the first place. So you're not really an artist at that point. You're, a shill. Next for like I even say like social or political skewed art. I think you do sacrifice a lot in like the interpretability of the art itself. Given that you're trying to accomplish a specific social or political aim, I think box yourself off creatively from a lot of the interpretive power of art. Because part of what is art means different things to different people, right? One person looks at a painting and sees this. One person sees, the beauty of life. Another person sees, maybe it's one of those people that saw that stupid sex ad and they're just thinking about kids having sex or something. I don't know. People have all, but if you're making it too obvious that it's promoting, a political or social movement of some kind, then there's not really much to interpret. It's like, all right, well, this is just like, save the environment or something, which again is not a bad message, but that's not really, it's kind of a one-dimensional piece of art. It's not really that great. But I don't know. I just think in general, people tend to think on too many levels and then try to accomplish just too much with their art instead of almost getting too specific and saying what is particularly beautiful, or maybe even the opposite. What is you know unsatisfactory to me about this particular object or subject, and then kind of pulling that apart as deep as you can in whatever medium that your art is, whether that's drawing or writing or whatever. I just feel like I don't get any of that anymore. And maybe I'm just you know living too close to the times. I just 50 years later, maybe there's a whole lot of great artists that come out of today's age, but I just don't see it. Anyway, so whatever. Um, yeah, I guess speaking of ads and how much I hate them, it kind of appalls me that I don't know that this stuff works. I mean, I've said this before, so it's not like this isn't even a new thing on my list here, but I'm just kind of appalled that of the malleability of the American psyche, or just how low. I kind of think that if you want to think about who views, I guess, the Western or the American psyche at its absolute lowest point, like who has the lowest opinion of the American person, it would have to be advertising people, because just all of the advertisements are, speaking of art, completely devoid of any creative integrity or merit whatsoever. And it's almost like you're just assuming everyone is a porn addicted, fat gambler who is willing to do anything to, I mean, it's like who's even falling for this shit anymore? I don't get it. Maybe it's just for whales or something, but I don't know. It's very gross to me. The level of just pure objective, like, I think you're a retard in terms of like what I see in ads. There's no amount of like subtlety or like I don't know, craftiness with anything. It's not. There's no there's no meta thinking needed at all. There's no, I don't know, no higher level processing required. It's just I guess appealing to the lowest of society, which is unfortunate. I feel like it going after the wrong people. Um, Whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to beat anything else um with ads, that is. Let's see. Um, Interesting. I was thinking about like what it is, and I guess this has something to do with identity of some kind, but what it is that I'm suited for as a like, I guess, as a future and occupation, and not even occupation. I even kind of hate all those words that have to do with like career of some kind. But um, yeah, I suppose genealogically I come from people that speak to other people, so I am kind of in the I guess genetically it's hard to even make an argument in that sense. Like, what you're predisposed to do. And part of it is, I don't think people are, there's even like a one to one. Of course there isn't. It's like I said before, I don't think there's, let's suppose that the world needs, 80,000 accountants for, the economy to function. How many people truly is there calling to be accountants? Maybe it's like, 20,000. Then we're looking, okay, well, there's 60,000 people that need to be accountants, but they obviously don't want to do accounting. So it's like, all right, well then we have 60,000 people that are now displaced from their occupation. So part of I guess, the dilemma here on the supply and demand side would be to figure out, I mean, I guess I don't know what, because I think the percentage of people don't do what they want to do, or don't do what they're even made to do in some sense. And like, you have LeBron filing people's taxes or something like that. It's like people that don't fit their occupation is almost higher than ever. So I wonder if there's any way to structure, well, not even society, but just, I guess, our economic system, I suppose, such that you have more people doing even what they, are remotely not even interested or built for. I mean, any of that really, because I feel like it's so far removed now. It's just like the answer to anything is just money. It's like, well, why does this money? But what about the money? It's like there's no other answer about anything. It's just there's no subtlety to it at all. It's just whatever is making money is the only part that concerns anyone at this point, which is just, I guess, the philosophy of capitalism. But I think we should be advanced enough at this point to at least uh, iterate on that concept a little bit, especially given all the wealth we've produced. Now, again, part of that, I guess, from a socio-political standpoint, would be to work within our own borders in terms of what we're able to accomplish, because we can't. I don't think there's enough wealth in the EU or the USA or whatever to I guess, alleviate everyone's problems everywhere. So I don't know. I guess that's getting too geopolitical for me. But yeah, it was. I guess I was thinking just about like if you were to interview capitalism as a person, and not that I need to take many more cheap shots at it, but just the answer to any question is just money. Um, so I was thinking about I don't know what I'm even fit for or what the world needs. I suppose that's also kind of another circle you could look at it is like, what are you good at? What do you not hate doing? And then what does the world kind of need? And I'm not really even sure what the world needs at this point. I think some people think that the world is driven by ideas of some kind. It's like, well, the people who have the best ideas are the people that, I guess are the strongest or most I don't know, robust in their ideas or their thinking is going to and it's like, and I don't really think the ideas really do that much. I think people have had all kinds of great ideas that don't ever get to do anything because they've lacked any kind of ability to execute those said ideas, um, which is a problem in itself. So it's more of like, okay, then like resources and kind of, I don't know, influence are what drive anything to accomplish anything. So it's okay, well, then what, if you're looking at what the world needs or what you can do, I guess one thing would be to just take stock of how many resources you have, or what leverage, or what reason. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any influence at all? And for most people, including me, it's like, well, no, I can't. I have no influence. No one listens to anything I say, no matter what. So it's not even like, uh, what am I supposed to do? I guess. Which I guess leads a lot of people to just like focus on, okay, I need to get a following, since I need to like be influential in any way. I need to say whatever's going to get me attention on me, such that when I have something to say, someone's going to listen. But that obviously backfires because if people spend all their time trying to get attention on them, a la what influencers do now, they don't really, but all they're doing is just kind of muddying up anything that they might actually have to say. And I don't think anyone, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this is more of just like, I'm kind of underestimating how stupid people are, but I don't think it's, uh, having some kind of platform, um, where all your ideas of any kind are diluted into, what's going to get you popular, or will ever have any efficacy in what you actually have to say something, if you actually have an opinion on something, as if it's going to do anything. And sure, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but saying whatever you need to say to become popular doesn't necessarily translate into, well, because I'm popular, people will listen and heed my advice, or whatever it is that I have to say. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. I just think in general, as somebody becomes very popular, they kind of lose the ability to have any autonomy in what they say anyway. They're only going to say what's going to protect their image, or their brand, because they've made this following and they can't alienate people that, given what they've said. So, even if it is what they truly believe, so then you're just kind of another puppet at that point. You don't actually get to execute any of these, ideas that, were supposedly what you had of value. Um, I don't know. There's just a whole trap with influence in general, because there is, I guess, a financial motive to staying popular, and you either go against that, I guess, to win your ideology, or to put your ideology on other people, or you lose just to retain your fame, which again doesn't seem like something that's privy to being honest towards executing your ideas of any kind. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't really care that much about that anymore. Let's see. I was gonna say something else about. Oh, I was gonna say something else about just kind of like battling ideology. So I think not future, history kind of looks back, and I suppose there are ideologies and things that have won, and things that have lost. And ideology you can take in any context you want. So this could be economic ideology, or social ideology, or religious ideology. Which ones have survived? And history kind of paints anything that exists as like the winners in that sense. And with regard to that, I would argue that modest ideologies don't really win any, like the wars, or so to speak. So suppose, and I'll do this in the context of religion, so it doesn't seem political. Although I guess maybe it could be if you spin it that way. So suppose that there's like, I'll say like warring religions in some sense, or some people believe this and some people believe that. I'm saying that the most modest of them. So suppose there's like, I don't know. I guess I hate to use examples here because that can kind of can kind of backfire. But like, suppose something that's mostly modest, like Stoicism in Greek, versus like something, I'm not going to say more extremist, but it certainly has, I guess, stricter requirements. But like Stoicism versus something like Christianity, or Islam, where Islam and Christianity are, I'd argue more extremist views in the sense that they require a lot more, and there's a lot more. There's a book you have to read. There's we do things on Sundays. We do things. There's a praying ritual thing. There's a sacrament component. There's all these different components in liturgy and literature that you have to do to participate in the religion. Whereas something like Stoicism is not like, there's not really a book, right? There's kind of just like a collection of like, there's some works you have to read. And you don't have to read all of them. There's no requirement. You don't have to go anywhere. There's no Stoic church, right? You just kind of have to do it. But like, I think part of the reason that Stoicism, and again, might have been more mainstream, in its time, but it certainly isn't. It's kind of a more fringy thing now, at least compared to, I guess, with the winning religions of Christianity or Islam or whatever one, I guess. It's just the more modest don't really win these battles, these historical battles. You don't really hear about a lot of things. So, in the same way, you might look at, I guess, economic theories that have, lived and died, and you have to imagine that the economic theories that survived are the more extreme of the ideologies, like this capitalism, where it's like all this whole free market thing. That's kind of the prevailing ideology, which is kind of extreme, and I think we've seen the extremes of that now. At this point, we're not, you know, foreigners to how extreme, uh, I guess, the capitalist system values money. But the modester ideology, the modest, economic theory isn't what survived, because they really don't. They don't fight wars well. Well, they might be, I guess, the most democratic, or even sometimes the most prudent, I would argue. They certainly aren't the ones that win these wars throughout history. So I think we kind of end up with this hodgepodge of winning ideologies, religions, systems that are the most extreme, right? Because there's not really, there's like, I think every kind of modest revolution fails. And I'm not sure there's exceptions to that, but in large part, I think most of what, um, I guess most of the systems we have are the more extreme, are the extreme ones of the bunch. And again, I'm not calling, Christians or Islamic people like extremists in any sense. But I think comparatively, you could think of them as extreme. And not the extreme in like a terrorist way. I just mean extreme in the sense that it's very involved. Whereas there's other ones like, just live by the golden rule. That can be that could be, it's very simple. It's very modest. It's, quaint, or cynicism even is kind of simple in its regard. It's not very complicated. It doesn't require any garb or anything. There's none of that. It's just a very simple thing, right? And people don't, but that doesn't really win. I don't know, win. That's not the most compelling. Um, so I don't know. I imagine a lot of the same, I guess the simplicity loses, can be seen in, I guess, how extreme a lot of our systems are now. At least they feel that way. So I don't know. So I was also thinking about, I suppose, like success and luck, which I hate using success as any, because it's really, that doesn't, it's such a vague measure, like statement towards, like, I guess, winning or losing. I don't even know what any of that means, really, success. But take it in however way you want, I suppose, whether that's, you know, uh, achieving status, or achieving a certain amount of production, or achieving a title, or achieving money, whatever success means in that sense. I'd argue that, and again, I mean, I guess it really depends on the occupation, but I would say the median occupation, or the median pursuit, whatever that might be. An occupation is a word, not a word for career, but a word for how you spend your time. A fair amount of that is, it's anywhere from 20 to 80 is based off of luck, where the median might be like a 50% luck margin. And I think with higher skill occupations, like maybe being a surgeon or something, there's probably less luck involved. So maybe luck drops to like, I don't know, say 20% of, your actual, calculation of success. Um, Whereas like if it's a lower skill thing, like, I don't know, I'm not even sure what, I guess a lower barrier to entry, it's not even skill, like a barrier to entry would be like, uh, I don't know, if you're like just like a cook or something. Again, I'm not kind of trying to figure out which occupation I can shit on without looking like a devil. But regardless, with lower skill occupations, I think that is a much higher chance. Like, so, okay, we'll just say this: an influencer. If you want to be an influencer, I'd say the percentage of that being luck is probably like, I don't know, 90 or something like that. Probably very, very high. And I suppose if you wanted to be more conservative, you could say, the luck ranges from 20 to 80%, but it still leaves, again, between 20 and 80% of, what people base a lot of their focus and time in their life on achieving this success is entirely luck. So it's completely out of your hands. And it's not anything that you can, influence. And sure, you can like, position things to get lucky. And that's kind of a very common trope, especially amongst, I guess, like Silicon Valley people. It's like, well, you got to like be in the right position to be lucky. Like, yes, of course, it's all luck based, but like you got to like maximize your odds to be lucky. But you're still like playing lottery, right? And I think now more than ever, I think more things are kind of structured as lotteries, where it's not. There's I don't know. I feel like we've lost any. There's very little on, at least seriously considering, what merit means in a certain field or occupation. It's all just like a matter of like, well, you got to like maximize your odds to be the most lucky in some kind, which isn't, again, very refreshing to me. And it's not that you should never try, or you should, because there's luck involved, you shouldn't do anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. But uh, it does feel that like now that people have embraced luck, all of a sudden they're ignoring merit. Uh, you know, where it's like, well, being an influencer is just like getting lucky, and you got to like get the algorithm, and it's got to be lucky. Or you're like, just get that one thing that like resonates with people or something. But again, they're so focused on like getting lucky and achieving, their success, that they forget, what the point of it all is. Or they forget that merit is supposed to be a part of the process in terms of who is supposed to get lucky, right? The luckier people should be better at stuff. Um, so I don't know. Part of it just leads me into thinking that I guess I should more seriously consider occupations that have, I guess, higher skill uh, requirements, such that there's, I guess, a lot less chance for luck. But even now, I feel like even high skill requirements, even like, the level of politics involved with just like even being a doctor, which is something you would think should be entirely merit based. There's still a hell of a lot of politics and other, I say, non-doctor things that involve, with that. Even like being a teacher, it's like the amount of administrative work that is now forced onto teachers is not. And I guess this has nothing to do with being lucky or being successful, but it just goes to show I guess, the lack of focus on true merit of some kind of profession. And I think you're unable to specialize if you're, again, too fixated on luck, or you're too busy bound by other, crappy parts of the system. So I don't know. I'll move on to something else. I feel like I'm not grabbing the crux of that idea as whatever I wrote down. It's the other thing about these things. I have like these spurts of where these ideas come from, and I write them down. But then, I try to, pull them out, and it's just like, I don't know, like you're fishing for spaghetti. It doesn't, just kind of comes out as some mess. It's not ever in the clean, idea that I had it in my head. Or especially if, like, when I'm frustrated with something, like PSA for people to turn their brights off. I had that perfectly articulated in my head, as I was driving down the road, watching some idiot with his brights on, just not with a care in the world, just because he doesn't, I guess, doesn't care about anybody else. But now it's like, well, got to try to find the vein of, the headspace that I was in when I got all upset about that. But um, I don't know, it's not always easy. Um, yeah, I suppose I'll just bash on tech idiots just because I feel like this hasn't been a great episode, so might as well loop this in. I was thinking about just the philosophy of a lot of the tech people, and the tech industry in general is not. Like, people think I'm anti-technology or I hate it. I don't. That's not really true. There are technologies I don't like. Not even technologies. There are uses of technologies that I don't like. Right? It's not like I don't hate HTML and CSS. I hate a lot of things people produce with it. Not even that, probably. I would say I'll probably like HTML and CSS. I just hate, JavaScript or something. What people do with it, really. It's not like the language itself is bad. I mean, it is kind of bad, but what people do with it is really the part that deeply troubles me. So that is, what I don't like about it. But I'm just, so I want to understand what, like, the belief system of this kind of like tech accelerationist is. Like, why is it that I disagree so strongly with their perceptions of the world? And I think is that they're, the same way. It's like if you're a child and you're thinking about your future and all your options for the future, it kind of can be an exciting time, right? Where you're just thinking about all the different things that you could do. It's like the world is your oyster. You have all these options. And technology allows people to live in this like childlike state forever because they can say, well, in the future we'll have AI that'll read our thoughts, and then I won't ever have to go grocery shopping again, and then I can have more time to play Legos or something. I don't even know what people are doing, but I've decided that I think that the AI tech accelerationist philosopher, so to speak, them as an entity, they have their heads so far into the future and up their ass, I would say, that they're incapable of seeing things right in front of them. They're just too close uh, to what the future might be that they lose sight of the present, right? Or they just think that, or they view things as an inevitability, which is the silliest way to view anything. I think if you look at any kind of history, they all kind of have these strange inevitabilities of things, like even like with religious stuff, that like, oh, it's inevitable that God will come in our lifetime and save. It's like, well, okay, that I wouldn't, how much I wouldn't bank too much on that, being an inevitability. So same with like, oh, it's inevitable of the, AI is going to take over and do all this stuff for us or something. I just think, but the prevailing part that I've noticed is that they're so far into the future that they fail to see the present and the world around them as it is. So that's why they're just so out of touch. I think that's kind of the prevailing word or phrase I can say is they're just out of touch. They don't know what just everyday life is for people, or what what even consists of, or what that even means. Um, so I don't know. I guess I'm just because I was listening to. I mean, I don't know why I was doing this, but I was listening to Zuckerberg talk, and I'm just like every time he's saying, I'm like, how did you even get to this conclusion, right? Where do you arrive at like this being like a good thought to have? And I realize it's part of his job and part of his whole ethos is to just like be so forward thinking you forget about the present. But that's really what it is. It's like a delusion where it's almost like you're, kind of stuck in a time loop. But in his case, instead of being stuck, in, I don't know, a 1500s monastery, he's stuck in like the year 2045 or 2445, where it's like we're not even close to that. You don't know how many atomic bombs are going to drop between now and then, or how many other things are involved in this like weird utopian vision of yours. So it's like, sure, I'm sure there's might be a future where people are wearing goggles instead of glasses, or I'm sorry, wearing, instead of, I guess, walking around the world, they're all sitting in little tubes, like the Matrix or whatever. And while that might be dystopian as is, they lose just every step it takes to get from here to there. Doesn't involve their crappy technology, or involves so many like things to go correctly, that it is unrealistic. Maybe I'm just not the utopianist. I don't have this inner utopianist in me. Um, whereas I guess Carlin said that like I guess every cynic is a failed idealist or a disappointed idealist or something like that, which it isn't all false either. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think there's a certain realism that you should accept, especially if you have any control or influence over the world, which these tech giants do. And so I think the real annoying part to me is that not only they have like they're taking note of their resources and their influence, and they go, oh, I could do all this stuff, and then they choose to like a child who's thinking about what I could do in the future. They're all too focused on these prospective technologies that, again, if we know anything about rolling out these kinds of things, it's always messy and rough. I mean, the early internet, messy and rough. Early, early drones, early flying technologies. I mean, look how long it took us to like perfect flying. And I realize that there's like an argument about like, well, think about the pace of it. We're like moving so much faster and everything so much. I think you're kind of overestimating the true engine of ingenuity that we have, and how good it is for developing what you think is going to be this utopian ideal. Like the distance we are from some kind of generalized, perfect, future proof intelligence that'll help everyone do everything all the time. Like if that were to exist, you'd have to realize that everything else would not exist in the same way. Where it's like, well, I wouldn't have to like, go get groceries or like vacuum or do this. It's like you're thinking if AGI or this like incredible technology exists that does all this crazy shit and is 100 years in the future, You think, even homes are going to exist in their modern state? Like, no, there's going to be like these weird pods. We're going to live in these pods, and we're going to, instead of meals, we're going to have like these, I don't know, liquid rations or something that's more efficient or something. Like, I think they expect like everything to change, to stay the same, like almost like a control group, and then we just add the meta goggles, and life will be perfect. And it's like, well, first of all, I don't think if the meta goggles ever reach this point where you're saying it'll help you do all this stuff, it'll help you put the recipe to cook or whatever, there's going to be so many other changes to the world around them that it's quite likely that it doesn't need to exist at all. Or if it does, it just makes it worse. It's more of a nightmare than anything. So I just view a lot of the uh, tech AI acceleration as a childish philosophy, in the sense that they're so caught up with like, they're so giddy with like what could happen, all these great, cool, fun things that we could do. I could go to the zoo but not leave my room. It's like, again, I think it's like just being a child and daydreaming about all the stuff that might happen, or what you're gonna do with the sleepover, how many options you have. It's like, that's not. I don't know. You're just that you're a baby. Grow up. The world does not work that way, and it won't end up that way. I'm sorry. So I don't know. I was trying to understand what these people thought like, and or why they come up with these ridiculous like ideas about the world, or society, or how it works. So they're insulated a lot, and they don't. I just think it's a very childish philosophy, but I don't know. Same. This is another kind of societal problem that I've had, and part of why I am so hell bent on producing things over consuming them is I feel like now that there's just everything seems to be this strange like voyeurism is what I call it. It's all just like people living their lives through other people. So like nobody is concerned with like them enjoying music. It's like, well, they were at a place where people enjoy music, seen enjoying music, where it's like they almost want to observe themselves in whatever suit that they feel like is good for their image of some kind. Um, I just think it's weird that everything is now can be converted or is isomorphic to this like voyeurist mentality where it's all about being watched and watching, like who's watching what. It's the same with like the image of things I was talking about last time, where it's people are now not less worried even about who they are, but who they appear to be. So same with identity. It's almost not even like the people are obsessed with like, oh, who am I? What do I do? It's for not even for like their own sake. They're obsessed with who am I and who what's my history? What do I do? Because it is they need to tell other people that like this is who they are, right? It's not even about like them knowing who they are so they can live their life and be okay with themselves. It's them like, well, now I can tell everybody who I am, and I can be, which first of all is never like a done case anyway. People, change all the time, for better or for worse. So it's not even part of that is, I guess some of it's in your control, but not, in an absolute sense. Um, Hold on. I don't know why my recording stopped, but anyway, I guess you'll have to stick with this freeze frame of OBS for the rest of the recording. But whatever, I only have like 5 minutes left. Um, anyway, I'm not doing anything important. I'm just running around getting glass. But the world, it does seem like this weird. Uh, just we're obsessed with like the, I guess kind of almost just watching ourselves. Watching ourselves live our life. It's like, they almost take this like when they told you that like, oh, if your life was a movie, make sure you'd want to watch it or something like that. It was some phrase like that. But they're more or less taking that to an extreme where it's like everything about them must be part of this like grand movie. Who they are, the character. It must, if it's changed in the character, it must go through this like dramatic transformational change. It needs to be like a part of like the big swoop. It's got to go really down and really good, and then we can figure out who you are and like move that. But I think just life isn't a movie, right? I mean, some people's lives are kind of fun. We can, I guess, take there for inspiration or something like that. But I feel like people want to live this like movie life where it's like everything is. Uh, I don't know. It's just it's this strange abstraction on actually living and actually figuring out who you are. So it's not about, I guess for them, it's not even about who they are for them. It's just who they are for the show, right? Who am I playing in this part? It's almost like they're given a script in a movie and like, they don't have to figure out who they are. And it's like only to act in the movie, right? Where it's like, how about you figure out who you are for yourself? And it's not about the movie, or the show, or who's watching, or whatever the fuck. It's for you because that is, you're living the life. It's not someone else's life. It's your life. Um, so I don't know. I think that is, I don't know, something I was frustrated with, and things being very voyeuristic, that people aren't really doing things for their own sake anymore. Uh, Obviously, another part of that is that people now live for most of their lives on this digital frontier, and it's not ever, there's less of a physical thing. And people aren't in the moment. People go to music festivals to take videos of them at a music festival. Such, I mean, no one's, first of all, no one's watching that. No one cares. But it's like this idea that, like, later I can, what did I do? Oh, I went to this music festival, and like I can, instead of just like, I don't know, remembering the music itself, or I don't know how fun the festival was. It's all about like, well, was I there? Was my actor there? Or how would I act at the thing? I don't know. People are just, that's almost why they have this identity crisis. It's because they're not even living for themselves. They're living through, this movie character of themselves. But I don't know. Anyway, because my screen glitched up, I'll stop it there. But anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out.